All right, we're going to go ahead and begin. Good afternoon and welcome to the Access ARPA webinar, Winning Internships Employer Panel. I am Kaylee Hogan-Schnitker, the Director of Talent Strategy for the Lincoln Partnership for Economic Development. We have a great program for you today with some incredible panelists, which we'll jump into here in a moment. Please utilize the question and answer and chat box for questions or comments as we work through the webinar. We will save them for the last bit of time, so we will get to them, I promise. We will also be recording this webinar and sending out contact information of our panelists so you are able to connect with them afterwards. Additionally, I will warn everyone that we do have a representative from the Department of Economic Development in case we do get into some questions that might be a little more challenging, that are more program related with our panelists later. Now I would like to introduce our panelists we have today. We have Anna Pressler here from Hudl, Julia Messineo from NRC Health, and interns Boinpally and Sophie Hellebusch. Anna, we're going to have you start us off this morning. Go ahead and introduce yourself a little bit more. Tell us a little bit more about Hudl and kind of help us understand why you value internships so much. Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you for that introduction, Kaylee. Excited to be here. As she said, my name is Anna Pressler, and I am a talent development lead at Hudl, which means I manage our global intern program as well as our community engagement efforts. Prior to starting work at Hudl, I worked at the University of Nebraska at the Rake School for 7 years. So worked on the other side of students finding internships and got to learn a lot more about what students enjoy in internships and what attracts them to companies and things like that. So to share a little bit more specifically about Hudl's internship program, I'm going to tell you a little bit first about why we have interns, what the goals of our intern program are. So we have sort of 3 categories of goals for our intern program. One is for the intern, one is for the team that intern participates on, and then one is for Hudl as a whole. So for the intern, our biggest priority and our biggest goals and what we hope to do for interns is to provide an experience where those interns can learn, contribute, and experience Hudl's values and culture. We want to make sure that we're offering a safe place to fail and then learn and grow, and by working on impactful projects in one of their career fields of interest. And then we also work really hard to make sure that we are fostering professional and personal development through mentorship, various educational offerings, networking opportunities, social activities, and all of those kinds of things. This is the biggest piece of a reason for why we do an intern program, is to provide that really great benefit for the intern to learn and grow and get some experience in their field of study. For the team who's hosting that intern, some of the biggest goals that we have are making sure that our interns are able and comfortable with challenging perspectives and approaches to our work and our processes. It can be really amazing to bring in an entirely fresh perspective on a project that we've been working on for a long time, or a brand new project. These interns often come with some really great educational background, some really great other experiences that allows them to help us approach our work in a different way, or bring to light new questions that maybe we hadn't thought about in the past. We also use the intern program as a way to help emerging or growing managers gain some experience in being a mentor or a manager, so that they are growing their leadership and delegation, evaluation, communication skills, those different kinds of things, just to help grow our current employees in that management opportunity. And then for Hudl as a whole, our biggest goal is that we are building pathways into Hudl for college students who might be interested in coming to work at Hudl full-time, to really contribute to that global workforce planning strategy that we have, and also helping to meet our diversity game plans, our diversity goals that we have here at Hudl. And then also gives us a chance to showcase Hudl's value and culture to a new set of potential employees, a new community, and those kinds of things. I know that we also were going to talk a little bit more about our program structure. So just giving a high level 50,000-foot overview of what our program structure looks like. Most of our interns at Hudl are starting in May or June, which is sort of the end of the typical academic year, as you know, and then they work in person for the most part at our headquarters here in Lincoln in a full-time capacity. We do have some interns then who continue during the school year, either working in person or remotely, depending on where they're coming from and what their schedule looks like, what works best for their team, their manager, and the work they're doing. Most of those interns who are continuing on during the school year, again, either in person or remotely, are working on a part-time basis, anywhere from about 10 to 20 hours per week, again, based on what works best for them and their team and the project they're working on. We really feel that it's important for us, at least, to start interns in person. Two key reasons that we've felt that that was important. One, that's what we're hearing most of our students want at this point. These students have experienced remote education and have maybe even experienced a remote internship, and they value that opportunity to get to meet people and have closer connections to coworkers and things in person, which then leads to point number 2 of why we think it's really important in internships whenever possible. And that is because we hope to provide more support and guidance to these interns. So we know that interns can reach out, or any employee can reach out via email, Slack, Teams, whatever communication methods we use, but it's much easier to lean over to the person next to you to ask a question, or run into somebody in the hallway and ask a question, reducing those barriers to, again, being able to provide that quality support. The last thing I'm going to touch on here is just some other aspects of our intern program that I think are important to round out that overall experience for an internship program. One is how we source our interns, where we find them. The number one thing that I think is most important is building relationships with influencers of those students. So figuring out a targeted approach of what roles you're looking to hire, and then considering who works in career services or teaches classes around those topics at area institutions that you're trying to recruit from, and then get involved in panel discussions or speaking in classes, or share the internship information with those professors, teachers, career services folks who can then spread the word about your internship opportunities. Those are really great ways for us to source some amazing talent. In terms of onboarding and bringing them into the company, again, it's really important to think about not just onboarding to the role that they're doing, but broader onboarding to the company as a whole, to the team and department, and then also to the specific role. Here at Hudl, we have a full week of onboarding for our interns, and then sprinkle in some additional learning opportunities as new projects arise, or if there's new knowledge that they need, or as ways to dig deeper into specific areas of the company. The other big important consideration is the type of work that interns are doing. Interns know if they're working on throwaway projects, so it's really important that we are providing meaningful experience with the work that they're doing, that they're working alongside FTEs, that their project has impact on the company and our customers. In terms of oversight of interns, we operate in a system that has both a manager and a mentor. The manager is primarily guiding sort of day-to-day work, holding regular one-on-one meetings and check-ins, directing the work assignments, doing performance evaluations, talking about goals and futures, interest with the company, and all those kinds of things. And then a mentor is more of a near peer person, potentially a past intern, someone in a similar role at the entry level sort of position, somebody from the same school or program, just somebody that might have a connection with that intern in some way, that can be another source of a go-to person to ask questions, or help sort of get them unstuck between manager meetings, to talk a little bit more about the culture and the dynamics of the office, and those different kinds of things. If you have a more remote workforce, having this two-pronged approach with a manager and a mentor can also be really helpful to make sure that at least one of them is in person in a physical office with an intern as well. And then lastly, just making sure that we are finding ways to build community and foster that sense of belonging among our interns. So thinking about social events that focus on the interns and connect them with full-time employees, offering personal and professional development opportunities. So ability to explore different areas of the business than maybe where they primarily work, doing Q&As with senior leaders, offering LinkedIn workshops or resume reviews or things like that that can just sort of round out that experience and make them feel incredibly welcome. As with all other areas of the company, the positive impressions that current and past interns have help them act as promoters to find future interns and can be sort of that other really best source of recruiting. So that was sort of a quick 50,000 foot overview of our internship program at Hudl, some key things that we think about, goals that we have for our intern program, and looking forward to answering your questions here in a little bit, but I will turn it over to Julia.
Thanks, Anna. So as Anna said, my name is Julia Messineo. I am a campus recruiter with NRC Health. I've been with the company for about 6 months, and I'm responsible for recruiting and maintaining our internship program and our early careers program on the sales side of things. Prior to my time at NRC Health, I led the IT and technology internship program at Nelnet. So I have about 3 years experience with campus recruiting and working with interns. And with that, I actually have experience prior as an intern myself in campus recruitment. For those that aren't familiar with NRC, we've been in Lincoln for about 40 years providing solutions related to patient experience in healthcare systems. So very much a mission-driven organization, and primarily what we look for with our interns is believing in that mission and wanting to contribute related to their skills that they're learning in school. So when I was thinking about why internships and my experience with that, 3 things came to mind as to why a company would want to have an internship program. There's definitely more, but these are kind of the top 3 that I thought of. The first being building a pipeline for full-time associates in an area of long-term high needs. So for example, with NRC Health, we have a large need for account development managers in that beginning part of our sales process. So we have an internship program that highlights that role and allows students to learn a little bit more about that. So continuing to build that pipeline for our full-time associates. In addition, maybe you have part-time work or temporary work for the summer that you think students would give a great perspective to and could complete alongside a mentor. But maybe you don't want to hire a permanent associate or someone of a more part-time capability. You think a student would be a good fit for this project. And then third, you want your company to give back to your community or university in your area. I see a lot of people that want to take on interns here at NRC as they're alumni of one of the universities in our area, and they want to work with students that went through a similar educational program as them. I think it's wonderful to provide that mentorship opportunity to students that have those similar values. So working with your universities in the area is going to be super important. I'm going to go through our internship program like Anna did. The interesting thing is, although our companies are different and our internship programs are different in many ways, they are also pretty similar. So you'll take away a few things that might be helpful for you to implement in your internship program. So first being, our interns also typically start during the summer in May or June. We typically start a week or 2 after seniors would graduate, allowing students that are maybe sophomores or juniors to take some time before they start their internship to travel, move, do whatever they need to prepare for a summer of hard work. At this time, we actually operate our internship in a hybrid model. Most of the reason being, for those in the Lincoln area, you've probably noticed that our headquarters in downtown Lincoln are being renovated. So we just have a small office that would not be able to accommodate all of our associates and internships during the summer. But with that, it's super important to us that we fully embed our interns into our culture. And so we host all of our internship events in person throughout the Lincoln area. And so with that, we're giving them opportunities to network with other interns, network with their mentors in person. Therefore, they can continue to build those relationships after their internship. We think it's super important to get our interns in the area, see what Lincoln itself is about. Another major pull for our internships is really just growing the Lincoln talent network and ensuring that people want to stick around in Lincoln and what we all collectively as employers have to offer. So we split our internships into two different programs. The first being on our business development side of things. So those are called our business development strategy interns. Major focus, actually the original program that we started about 7 years ago here at NRC for internships. And then the other side being on our engineering, software engineering side of things. So very popular program to have interns in. And additionally, a program where we see a huge benefit of having students learn those skills and implementing the skills that they're learning in classes on real world projects. So a few things that you're going to see in both of our intern programs. Most important, something that Anna also mentioned is mentorship. We do not believe here at NRC that an internship program is complete without some sort of mentorship program. And the reason that I bring that up is because students simply need help executing things that you might think are second nature. Many of them have never used Outlook before. Again, something that comes second nature to us of building out our calendar, how to respond to emails, things of that nature that they honestly might be afraid to ask their manager. So having a mentor, someone similar to their age or in a similar role is going to be super helpful. The other thing I want to mention with our mentor program and any mentor program is having it structured enough that you are ensuring that it's being followed through on. So I always take the approach of having the student or intern really lead the relationship and reminding them when to reach out to their mentor, how often they should be meeting, what their meetings should be about, but leaving it open-ended enough that they can take it and really have it be about what they need to learn about. So a topic that I often have them talk about in their mentorship is maybe a mistake that their mentor made during some time early in their career and how they overcame that. Young students are often really afraid of making mistakes in their internship, but they're going to. Absolutely, but having the idea of failing quickly and learning from their mentor on how they can move forward is super important. Let's see, I have other notes here of things to keep in mind. As Anna mentioned, it's super important that you are embedding them into projects that your team is working on at that time. And so that would include small projects that they can complete daily. That would also include at least one long-term project that they can work on throughout the entire summer. And then we love capping off our internship program at the end of the summer of them presenting that to our internship team, to their mentors, managers, and talking about how awesome their experience was, things that they learned along the way, and maybe some recommendations from us. No one knows better what interns need than students. And so listening to them and hearing from them about what they want is super important. And with that, that really comes down to my advice of reaching out to students regularly, seeing how they can contribute to your company is going to be super important. Everyone's internship program is going to look a little bit different, as you can just see through this conversation. Anna and I both had some key things that were similar, but when it comes down to the execution, it might always look a little bit different. So highlighting the things that you're going to want to see, the goals that you had, those 3 goals that I mentioned are going to be super important to structure your program around. And let's see, I think that's all I have for now. We can get into some of my other advice later. but I'm going to pass it along to Teju, who is a current intern, and she's going to give you some of that advice from her perspective.
Cool. Thanks, Julia. So hi, everybody. My name is Teju. I'm a computer science major at the Rake School here at UNL with minors in business and math. And currently I work at Firespring as a software engineering intern. And last summer I was at Hudl as a product management intern. So what I look for most in a program is learning experience and patience from the company. So I want to be able to know more about the company and be able to live the company's values and get the full experience as an intern. Along with the learning experience, having a mix of like hands-on learning is crucial, I think, to see how we might fit into the company and more specifically to the role. I also think patience is really important for companies to keep in mind because learning during the internship is the most important thing for me and a most important thing that the company can do. So more importantly, interns should never feel like they don't have a place to ask questions. And if they were supposed to know completely about a subject or a tool, they should never feel lost in that entire process. They should always feel like they have a support system that they can lean on. And obviously that hands-on experience also comes with a little more independence as the internship moves forward. I also think one of the most important things to have an internship is flexibility and acknowledgement that we are students, whether it be in the summer or during the school year. So whether that be in-person or hybrid options, depending on what you need to accommodate for them, or acknowledging that they have schoolwork or other classes they might take. Even during the summer, I know a lot of people take summer classes, which is really important to keep in mind. And make sure they have time to ask questions or check in a little, give a little bit of a padding for mistakes. Because I know that in my last internship and even in my current one, even having a weekly check-in with my manager is really helpful because I get to ask any questions that have accumulated during the week that I didn't want to reach out and ask for during the week. And just give them an update on how things are going, things that I've finished this week, things that I'm looking forward to, etc. What I enjoy most about my current job is that they really focus on the learning aspect and make sure you're understanding how they work. So I've never really had a developer role before Firespring, and junior year is extremely busy, but they're very accommodating with that. And they really just help you without holding your hand too much. So I'm actually learning a lot as we speak. And my big takeaways from my experience of being an intern for the past 2-ish years is that I've found great mentors and gained valuable hands-on experience from my past internships, especially hands-on experience. And the mentorship that you have and the connections you make are extremely valuable and unmatchable. And I also think the patience and encouragement of my managers, of my coworkers, fellow interns, and just the company in general, the vibes of the company are very important to keep in mind and a huge part of the internship experience. So that's a little bit from me. I'm going to pass it off to Sophie, who is another current intern.
Thanks, Teju. Yeah, so my name's Sophie Hellebusch. I'm currently a senior at the University of Nebraska, majoring in computer science and getting minors in business and math. But I'm currently a product manager intern at Hudl, which I started as like a summer internship. So back in this past May, but have continued during the school year. So I'm currently working about 15 hours a week. And then previously I've held internships in software engineering and product and design. To start off with, just some things that I look for in a program are like looking at the requirements that the company posts for the program. So usually that would be like a year in school. So they'll say like they're only looking for sophomore, junior interns, or maybe they'll say all years or maybe just senior, or however that works. And that's usually pretty flexible based on the skills you've obtained and the classes you've taken. Next, I kind of look for if a program is going to be offered as in-person or remote or hybrid. Personally, I prefer in person just so I can really like get a feel for the company culture. And I think Anna touched on this a little bit. It's a lot easier to ask questions whenever you're in person. And as an intern, we kind of have a lot of questions that come up. So it's a lot easier to ask those in person. So those are kind of just some of the reasons that I look for an in-person internship. The next thing I look for is trying to get a feel for how structured the internship program is, because personally, I prefer a lot of structure. So for example, being able to go in and have like some goals set to accomplish within like a certain time frame is like super helpful to give me guidance on what to be working for and what goals I'm trying to achieve and what skills I'm trying to gain throughout the internship. And then as well as having some of those structured social intern activities that really like helps get that feel for the company culture and create friends, as well as like people to learn from throughout the internship. Moving on to like some of the things that I've enjoyed most about my current internship is I've had really good mentorship. So starting at Hudl, I had like a manager who was assigned my manager and who I knew I could go to for any questions. And she was also there to help me set goals and things that I wanted to accomplish throughout the summer, which was helpful to like figure out what is obtainable and what I should be working toward. And then she was really there and ready to give me the time and resources to achieve those goals. Like she wasn't just helping me set them and then try to figure out how to get there. She really devoted like a lot of time and energy into helping me get those things accomplished. And then as well as getting some real life learning experience. So the things that I was working on weren't just like hypothetical problems, or I wasn't just like shadowing anybody. Like I actually felt like I was making a real impact at the company. And then some of the biggest takeaways from my internship experiences has been, I've really felt like I've learned things, and that it's like taking what I have learned in the classroom, but actually going out and applying those skills has really helped me feel comfortable to graduate this next spring and step into my career and feel comfortable doing that instead of feeling like I have no idea what I'm doing. And then another big takeaway is I've kind of already touched on making sure that I felt like I made a real impact and had clear direction. And that's something that I've looked for in every role, is trying to make sure that that direction is there and that learning experience is there for me to be able to go out and gain.
Thank you so much, Sophie. And thank you, Teju, Anna, and Julia, for the information that you shared with us. We're going to go ahead and start with some of our questions here. We have a couple, so if you all want to turn your cameras back on, and we'll go ahead and jump right in. All right, my first question for you is, how have you seen internships evolve over the last few years? We've had COVID, we've had all sorts of things happen, but what are some ways that you've seen them change? And go ahead and unmute if you have an answer.
I can take this one to start off, but I think one of the big things that I've noticed is that the hybrid flexibility is a lot more after COVID, which is kind of nice. I do prefer in person, but having that hybrid option was really helpful over the summer, just because, you know, again, we are students, things come up, you might have to leave town, but you can still work while you're at it. So that's definitely something I've seen change.
I think this shift happened definitely prior to COVID, but I think an attitude that people have had in the past is that an intern is extremely lucky, and yes, of course they are, to have a position, but that the intern should only be serving the company. I think a major shift that's happened, and a necessary one, is that the company should be serving the student as well, whether that be an internship should be paid, that we should be providing them meaningful and real work and not just running and getting their boss coffee. Again, a necessary change, but definitely one that happened prior to COVID.
Yeah, I'm not sure that I have a ton more to add there. To tack onto what Julia said, I think the internship experience has become much more common among college students across all majors and all disciplines. I think for a while the intern push was really heavy on, engineering or computer science or those kinds of things. And now I know most companies are offering internships in marketing and human resources and events and really everything. And it's much more common for pretty much any student that is pursuing some type of a degree, a college degree, to want to have an internship.
Awesome. Any more thoughts? All right, so another question, did you have an internship at the beginning of your career? And if so, how do you feel it prepared you for a full-time role? And this might be a question for Anna and Julia, but if not, if you didn't have an internship, what other opportunities did you take advantage of in order to grow those skills?
I'm muted. I can start. Like I mentioned, I did have an internship that I took advantage of. And I think number one thing was it actually helped me realize what I wanted to do. I had no idea that being a campus recruiter was a career option for me. So first and foremost, most helpful thing was opening up this door for me. I was able to help recruit for other interns, see what it took to be a part of recruiting events. But another opportunity that I had prior was I had an on-campus job, and this was very helpful in me learning what it was like to be a professional and work in an office environment. So I always recommend students having some sort of similar type of job before they take advantage of an internship, and it likely opens internship opportunities for them.
And I was in college long before Julia was. And I did actually have an internship that led into my first full-time job. And I will echo Julia's sentiments that it was in a field that I didn't know existed, which is what got me into working in higher education and working with students on college campuses before I started working here at Hudl about 6 months ago at this point. So yeah, it really opened my eyes to different career paths that I potentially hadn't considered before.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I'm going to go ahead and get into questions from the audience. And this question is a challenge that we too have here in Lincoln. So I'm going to go ahead. Some of our internships are in person in smaller communities, and finding housing for the intern can be very challenging, expensive, or non-existent. What ideas do you have for finding housing? These are generally 12-week-long internships.
Honestly, I think this is difficult regardless of the size of your program. My entire time I've been in campus recruiting, this has been a difficult problem to solve. I would say if there is some sort of college campus in your area, getting connected with their housing would be super helpful. Even if you can't pay for it, at least getting your intern connected with them. And oftentimes universities are willing to provide some sort of cheaper option for them, or simply offering them an hourly rate where they would be able to pay for some sort of temporary housing in the area.
Again, echoing what Julia said, we this past summer partnered with the University of Nebraska and housed some of our interns there, which was a great partnership for us and worked well for both them and for both the university and Hudl. We also are trying to leverage new builds here in Lincoln. So, they are building a brand new student housing building right now that we are trying to get into already for next summer. We are also starting early. We used to have these conversations in January, February, but we are honestly having these conversations now. We started them in September to prepare for next summer so that we can get on the books as early as possible. And then I think the other piece is what Julia mentioned, is making sure if you can't actually provide housing, that there is a housing stipend of some kind or an hourly rate of some kind that can help support housing so that it is affordable, and then letting the students connect with each other or other people in the community to be able to find their own options as well, if you can't collectively find an option.
Awesome, thanks. What recommendations do you have for starting an internship program, and what are some of those first steps?
Well, I can start first this time. I think number one is making sure that you have really good buy-in from the rest of the company, because as we've mentioned multiple times, Teju, Sophie, Julia, and myself all mentioned the importance of really great managers and really great mentors, and therefore you have to have healthy and excited teams for these interns to join, mentors and managers who are excited to work with interns and have the time and capacity to truly provide excellent support. And then, because of the importance of providing really great projects, making sure that you're thinking about how many interns to hire and or in what areas to hire interns based on your workforce planning. Julia mentioned this at the beginning with some of her comments as well, of thinking about where do you have the biggest needs for hiring that you want to build a broader pathway into your company. That can be a great place to start. And again, making sure that there's a longer term plan for how your workforce planning strategies incorporate interns. So that would be the two biggest things I would say, is thinking about where your needs are and how they're going to fit in with your workforce planning strategies. And then also making sure that you've got really great buy-in from managers, mentors, and the teams that are going to be supporting these interns.
I'm going to echo everything Anna said. Absolutely, yes. And then I would also say start small. One of the companies I interned for in college just had one intern at a time, which is absolutely fine. And I think is a great way to get started. And then they were able to grow and have multiple interns at once. I think you kind of need to figure out what your flow is with your interns, where they fit in with just a few, and then go from there, and you can grow based off of your company size. I would say the next step is getting connected with schools in your area and becoming friends. Anna already mentioned this at the beginning, was becoming friends and getting to know the partners and main stakeholders that students are reaching out to at their school. So career services, if they have someone specifically that works with their students on their success, is going to be super important, because when you get started, students aren't going to know about your program. So those people can start to talk to their students about the options you have.
All right, do we have any other questions from the audience? We have a few minutes left here. I can ask another one. What sort of resources have you used either locally in your community or that could be available statewide to help with your internship programs, whether at your current job or previous?
In the Lincoln area, Kaylee's not paying me to say this, but Kaylee and My Turn is a wonderful resource because it's nearly impossible to plan all of the social outings, networking opportunities that your interns need. So if you're in the Lincoln area, I would highly recommend getting involved in that program. And again, I promise she's not paying me to say this, but as a student, it was super helpful. And then for my position now. I really enjoy sending my interns that way.
Thank you. And no, Julia, I did not ask anyone to mention my turn before this.
But it's a great program. So yes, if you're in the Lincoln area, it's awesome. I would also say, because we've all talked about the importance of interns working ideally in person, we know that we need to do a little bit of a sales pitch about why it's great to work in Lincoln. So working with the Convention and Visitors Bureau in your town, or just your city in general, with things that are going on during the summer that interns could participate in, like in Lincoln, My Turn, or thinking about, you know, the College World Series in Omaha, or the great zoo we have, or just those other kinds of things that help hype up the opportunity to work in whatever city or town the interns are going to be in.
Awesome. Well, it looks like we're coming to the end of our time. So I do have one kind of final question for you all, including you, Teju and Sophie. What's one final word for the employers on here today that are thinking about starting an internship or maybe growing the one that they currently have?
I can start with this one. I think finding great mentors, like I think everybody's mentioned, in your company to kind of take that head start and like be like the head of your program, or like push the internship program forward, is really important. So finding those people who are interested and want to interact with the interns and want to mentor the future generation is really important, I feel.
This might be really similar to Teju's, but I would say like kind of having that buy-in from the company and having everybody be ready to provide the time and energy that it takes to like really get interns fully onboarded and prepared, and that they feel comfortable.
I would say get on the same page with as an entire company, so leadership, mentors, so on and so forth, as to what your goal is for an internship program and centering your program components around that goal.
And then I'll round it out by saying that, you know, remembering that this is a learning opportunity for everyone involved in the intern program. It's a great way to learn for the intern. It's a great way to learn for the manager and mentor if they're open to the new ideas that the intern is going to bring to them. It's a great way to learn and grow for the company as a whole. So just going into an internship program with that really open mind to learn and grow and develop the intern and the company through the intern.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much to our incredible panelists here today. We appreciate you taking time over lunch to give us some more information about what makes internships great. But with I have one final request, one final question, and Rose Baker is going to be so kind to join us. But do you have an update on Intern Nebraska?
I do, and I'm going to start from the very beginning. So this year, the department received a $20 million appropriation for the Intern Nebraska grant program. So that is pretty exciting for our department and for the state as a whole. Along with that $20 million appropriations, the legislature went ahead and opened the program up. I will start with the student eligibility. In the past, the program was only available to full-time students attending a college or university or institution of higher learning, 11th and 12th graders in high school, and anyone who received an internship within the last 6 months of graduating. And that has now changed. It is actually now available to still 11th and 12th graders in high school, but it is available to any student attending a university, college or institution of higher learning. So that means that we are now able to include these students who are only attending part-time as well. So I think that's a really good change for the program. Along with that, it opened it up from 6 months to 12 months. So any student who has graduated in the last 12 months and is receiving an internship opportunity, they are now also eligible. The other big update that came along with the program was what is now eligible for reimbursement. In the past, it has always been that it is a wage reimbursement. And that is still true, but only for employers who have 50 or less employees. And then for all employers, they are all eligible for housing reimbursement. So we kind of talked about housing. So this would now be an additional a resource that employers can now look at: tuition reimbursement, transportation, and then there will be some marketing and admin that can be reimbursed. And the department is looking at that for recruitment efforts. Businesses who are going out of their way to recruit students from outside of the state of Nebraska, we want them to have Intern Nebraska as a resource that they can use to help with some of the costs associated with that. We do have looking towards the future, some of the things that we are finalizing is the RFP. And this is specifically for the legislature provided the department the opportunity to be able to ask Nebraska-based nonprofit entities to help us manage the grant. And so we are planning on having an RFP out later this year. As soon as that's finalized through the government channels, there'll be more information on that. And then along with that, because there are such drastic changes being made to the program to the legislation that was passed, our department will also be required to do an amendment to our qualified action plan. And so that qualified action plan will provide just a little bit more information about the new direction of the program, but it also gives the public an opportunity to comment on some of those changes that are being made and can also just help us shape the program. So we appreciate any feedback that we can get during that time because it's beneficial to us. I don't know if I missed anything. Are there any questions?
The only question we had was just being able to get this information later, but I have touched base with Kristen and we'll hopefully get that in the follow-up email. So
Perfect.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Rose. And again, thank you so much to our panelists for being here with us today. I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your afternoon. The State Chamber will be following up with the recorded version of our webinar, as well as additional information about our panelists and the Intern Nebraska grant. Thank you and have a wonderful rest of your day, and we will see you on the next Access ARPA webinar.